This is CIST 2453, week 4, WebEx session. And we do have a few people here. Okay. So, this week you are on chapter 7 and 8, if I just read my calendar correct. Actually, if I look at the other calendar, I should have it correct. And yes, it is module 7 and 8 this week. So, you have a test at the end of 8. I believe it covers 6 through 8. So you've got a couple of weeks of test right here in a row, and then you get a week without a test. Which figures to be the longer week. All right. So you're looking at WAN concepts this week in chapter 7, and then in chapter 8 you're looking at VPNs, and then VPN and IPsec concepts. And IPsec is your security that you're using on the VPNs to encrypt the information going across the VPNs. So, without going into a lot of talking on this, unless I need to have this more interactive, that questions from y'all. I know I have only graded, I think it was module chapter 3 that was due last week is all I have got graded so far. That I think 3 and 4 were due last week, if I remember right. Yep. And if I'm remembering right, chapter 3 is graded. Yeah. And chapter 4 I've actually graded a couple of people, but most people are not graded in chapter 3 yet. I'm going to try to get that done today. Last week ended up being rather busy. I've also gotten one other class I have not started grading their items that were due last week, and so I probably will jump to that first because I've graded something in your class and grade on them, and then the other class I have I'm actually caught up on grading. That I did a little bit of grading this weekend. I was in Northern Kentucky this weekend for a new Kiwanis Club opening. That they had their charter night, which is when they get presented their charter as a club, and they had a big festivity about that. So I spent, and that was like 4 hours up the road from here, because it's literally up in Northern Kentucky. It's almost close to Cincinnati. Actually not far from the Ohio and the Indiana state lines. So it took a full size drive both ways. Hopefully I can get caught back on that. And then tomorrow be back on normal schedule, because last week we did have the holiday mixed in there, which threw stuff off. And then I did spend Thursday. I went down to Polk County, as y'all saw in the announcement, to assist a student, and I offered to help, although nobody showed up there. Additionally, the one that was supposed to be there was there. And that was an hour and a half drive each way, so that took half the day of my work day, actually, essentially, because was used up just in driving both directions. So that used up part of the week too. So and then I got delayed to start the week. That my car had an issue and I was stuck in South Georgia for an additional day. I was going to come back on Monday on the holiday, like I normally do on Sundays, but my car had an issue on it. Turned out to be a loose nut on the CV joint. which is a good idea that I did get fixed, because that would have, if that had come on apart, I would have come stopped on the road and I would have been stranded somewhere for probably several days while it got fixed. Car actually is in the shop again this morning because I'm still having some issue with the front end of something about it. And they replaced the tie bar the week before. And something's just not right on it. So I've got it over there for them to hopefully get it correct today. Because I do have some high mileage trips coming up over the next month. And so, but that between the two things goofed up my week all over the place. Although I did a good bit of grading last Monday, which had me back on schedule, even though it was holiday. Because then Tuesday I was on the road. Well, Tuesday night, because the car was in the shop all day Tuesday last week. And I did some work then during the day, that day. But when you're waiting on a car, you're a little limited. So, questions, comments, whatever at this point. What do y'all need me to talk about? Whatever. I don't see anything in here yet. All right. Are you asking? Oh, wait a minute. It's back up here. Okay. Okay. Let's see if I've got it. The box is a little limited there. There, got it a little better. The outside local and outside global are always the same. Are you talking IP version 6 addressing? Because I'm not sure what you're meaning by outside local and outside global addresses, because IP version 4, yeah, with NAT, because with NAT, you're going to have, there's going to be the address on your local machine, which is going to be a private address on there. So it's going to be something either in the range of 10s or 172s or 192s. Then on the outside, the global part out in the outside world will be a public address, which will be not one of those private addresses. Okay. So it will be something other than in those three ranges that I just mentioned, the 192.168, the 172 of 15 through 31, and then the 10s. So on the outside, it will be a public address. So it will be a full functional address, but it will only be one address there that's out in the outside world. Now, depending on the organization, if you've got lots of machines, you may have a couple of NAT outside addresses, but you're still typically on NAT going to be only using one address on it. So I'm not sure what you're meaning by the outside local and outside global being the same. There should only be one outside. There's only one outside address that you're going to be dealing with in NAT that is going to be converting all of the inside addresses out to a single outside address. But every device inside your network is all using that same outside public address. Okay, so at home, for me, I'll use this as the example of when I'm on the internet at home, whether I'm on my laptop, my desktop, my phone, as far as when they connect out to the outside world, the address that is on the outside is the same one for all three of them. Now, their address inside, which is a private address, which actually there, if I'm remembering right, I believe that Comcast has it set up on their box to use 10s, if I'm remembering right. So I think they all have a 10 point something address, but each one of them, the laptop, the desktop, and the phone all have three different, each have an individual separate address. But they all use the same public address out onto the internet, that when it gets passed through NAT, they all go out using the same identical address onto the internet. Pull this on up a little bit more if I can. All right, Pat's not gonna, because using that same address out there, going out, that's NAT. And NAT's going to remember when it sends something out, NAT knows on that message of where it changed it to a public address. NAT records it in its own little database, which device that came from that it sent out. So when it comes back, it's going to use, then convert it back to the correct address. Pat's not going to come involved into that. NAT's going to do that completely on its own. What Pat does is Pat changes the port on it, just like changing the addresses on it when it sends out. I have used Pat before as basically as a security type mechanism, that where organization, a business was wanting to be able to log into their machine from home, their office machine, they wanted to log in from home. What I did was, when I set it up for them, actually through what is their NAT device, this also does PAT, and it's actually sitting there as their quote modem, although it's really a router that's connecting their outside internet to their inside, so it's changing which network it's on. And that I used PAT there so that they were going to use remote desktop connection on it, which uses port 3389, if I've got my number specifically correct. I'm pretty sure that's the right number. And everybody knows it's 3389. So your hackers quite often, if they go in and they look and see that port 3389 is open on the there on that modem, that and again, this quote modem is really a router, that if they do a port scan and 3389 it's open, they're going, okay, we've got an easy way in here, because they can use remote desktop connection and dive right into your network, right to the machine. Now, the important part there is that you have a log on to that machine with password and possibly even multi-factor on it, which would be a good idea today, because then that would definitely stop them in their tracks. But they've had an opening to get into your network, and that is a known opening, and they know which program uses that port. So what I did was I changed the port that when they went to log on from home through remote desktop connection, that they told it a different port number to use. What you can do, as y'all know, by putting colon and the port number on the end of the URL. So when they type in to connect to their machine, and coming in through remote desktop connection, they didn't use port 3389. They used some other port number that we came up with. And actually I picked a port number that meant something to them so they could remember it. And then what I did was, when it came through the firewall, and this was where it really helped, because the issue is when it comes from outside coming in with NAT, you're coming in on that common address, which just gets you to that modem. Now it's gotta get to the specific machine. Well, obviously the NAT program doesn't know who that program belongs to when it comes in there, because it goes, wait a minute, it just came to me and you're wanting me to pass it on inside, but I don't know where to pass it to, because I don't know which machine, because I didn't send out the request, so I can't remember of where did it come from. This is coming from outside in instead of something that was inside out in a response back. So what I did was I set using PAT that told it if it came in using port whatever, that then when it saw it was whatever, that it changed the port number and the machine address, that it then changed those to the correct address inside the network. And then it went on to the correct machine. And so the port number was the giveaway on it, because if it came in going to a certain port on that machine, using PAT, it then knew to change that, the address and the port, to the correct machine, and it forwarded it on. So it was doing that. So that's what happens there with the PAT. So you're, again, on the outside, it's only a single address coming into that network. There's a single public address. Then what PAT does is that actually with PAT, you can change the port numbers on it so that you can switch which port, and that can then be used as a way to direct it to the correct machine in the network, or that it can also switch ports going the other direction. All right. Now, Ashley, if you run into an issue where it's not grading as it should be, you should be writing me and telling me, because I don't know it if y'all don't tell me, and I'm probably going to request you send me the packet tracer file at that point so that I can try it and see what's going on. But y'all got to tell me when y'all are working on the assignment. I've had one person write and say they couldn't get it to work in their submission, and I'm going, well, you get graded on what you submitted, because you didn't write and tell me, that person didn't write and tell me that they were having a problem with it, and let me help them fix the problem, because probably you're still putting something not absolutely right in there. Now I have seen very, very rare, on only just a couple of occasions in the past, where there was an assignment that had an error in it, which I notified Cisco of. And then I took care of that. But normally when students tell me it's not grading correctly, that then when they send it to me and also send me a screen print showing me what they're putting in, but then when I go through it and look at it and try it, that they made a mistake on what they were putting in. So you need to email me when you hit a problem of that, and tell me what it's doing, and preferably include a screen print showing what it's doing to you, of what you're putting in and what it's doing. And that you may want to go ahead and attach the packet tracer file. You don't have to. If I need it, I'll ask you for it. But you can attach it. The packet tracer files are small enough that y'all can email them to me so that I can actually look at it and then write me back and tell you exactly what the issue is, because then I can try it right there in your file and see what's going on. It could also be that you made a previous mistake on some previous step and didn't realize it, and now on that step is when it does something where it grades on, because it doesn't grade you on every entry, that it grades on certain entries through it. So it could be catching that you already made a mistake and you didn't realize you had made a mistake previously. So make sure you do send me an email when you have an issue like that where it won't grade correctly on you. Because I don't know it unless y'all tell me. Now, I have been through this class, but that's been a number of years ago. Since it's been redone, because this essentially was what used to be 2 classes. They took parts of the 2, 3, and 4 classes, what we call 2450, the called 2452, 53, and 54. We don't have 54 anymore because there's only 3 classes. And they moved things around a couple of years ago when they did this last revision, when they did version 7 revision, and narrowed it down to 3 classes. A lot of what was in 3 and 4, they left in 3. Although some stuff that was in 3 moved to 2, some stuff in 2 moved to 1, and actually some stuff in 3 moved to 1 also. And that's why, partly why you had so much to do in 1 and 2. And if you notice in 3, there's not quite as much to do. And that's the way it's always been. 1 and 2 got a huge amount of work to do, and 3 and 4 are much lighter. I have told them for 20 years now, actually more than 20 years now, that they need to change on that and redistribute the workload over the 4, now 3 classes more evenly, but they have chosen not to. My understanding is one reason on that is they think you're doing internship in the 4th one, and so they think they should lighten on that. But internship's not part of that class, so, and they're saying that class should be the same amount of time as the other classes, so that shouldn't come into play on that. That would just affect how many classes you signed up for. But Cisco doesn't seem to understand that, and they actually have people working in the Network Academy that used to teach, that taught full time. I know a lady that taught at Central Georgia and Macon for a good number of years and got into the Cisco when it first came on, and she's still working for them 20 years later. I didn't think she'd stay there that long, but she has, and that she taught for probably 5 to 10 years at Macon at Central Georgia Tech. And so she knows how it works from the teaching side, but she's actually been a teacher. All right, did that answer both of y'all's questions? Ooh, there may be more down here. I just realized this thing didn't scroll down. Then you need to write me and tell me where you had a problem with, and send me, if you think you're supposed to have 100 on it and that it won't record that on it, send it to me, send those to me, and I will look at them today and send them back to you during the day on what the issue is. All right, and there y'all got yeses and thank yous. So where you said that you had a problem on 5.412 and 5.413, then write me and tell me where you saw the problem on it, and send me, in this case, definitely go ahead and send me the packet tracer files, but give me as much detail as you can about what the problem was, and I will look at those later today. I have this session now. I have session at 11, and then I'm supposed to meet with a student in a WebEx session that's been having some issues in one of the classes on stuff working. It's not this class, it's actually a server class at 12, but around that, and then the rest of the afternoon, because I'll be here till 4 o'clock or later. I will look at those and then get them back to you. But don't wait till 4 o'clock to send them to me, because I do get off, supposed to get off work at somewhere around 4 o'clock, and I may not have a chance really to look at them. I will try. Any other questions? Okay. Next week we will meet on Monday. But the following week we will have the session on Tuesday instead of Monday. Because we have a holiday on the 19th. So 2 weeks today is another holiday. So if there's not any others, I am going to stop the recording, but I'll wish y'all a good week, a good day, and hopefully I'll see y'all and some others back next Monday. And I will try to get this grading stuff. I'm really not behind technically yet, because like I say, I try to grade. I don't grade things until after their due date. So should be still grading on what was last week, and I had to work on some other stuff this morning for classes about the discussion. So preferably my idea normally is that I have grading all done by Thursday, but I'm a little behind. So I'm going to stop the recording